please call the roll.
Mayor Rusty Paul,
Present.
Councilmember John Paulson, Councilmember Melody Kelly, Councilmember Melissa Mueller,
Here.
Councilmember Jody Rochelle,
Here.
Councilmember Timmy DeJulia,
Here.
Councilmember Andy Bauman.
Here. All right, I'll turn it over to city manager for the budget workshop number 2.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, Mayor, members of council. We're happy to be back before you today to go through budget workshop number 2. Just a quick reminder of the calendar for the upcoming meetings. You'll notice there is a time change from today to next Tuesday. Next Tuesday is a special called budget meeting because we will be presenting the actual line item detail, and that will start at 3 p.m. Then the following 2 meetings will all be part of the remaining council meetings. The first public hearing will be on June 3rd at 6 p.m. And the second public hearing and budget adoption is scheduled for June 17th at 6 p.m. Any questions on the calendar? All right. So today's meeting is another step in our annual budget process so that we can receive feedback and guidance from council as we continue to develop the proposed city manager's budget for 2026. We are going to review the budget planning assumptions that we discussed in workshop 1. We're also going to talk through some of our public safety, general government services and facility needs as part of our overall service delivery and capital programs, and then answer questions that were posed during workshop 1 that we were unable to answer during the workshop and those that were sent in after. So since our incorporation, our budget principles have not changed. We have always conservatively estimated and determined our revenues and expenses. Our rationale for that, and it's good budgeting practice to do that, is to make sure that we do not have any unfortunate surprises at the end or even in the middle of the fiscal year. Another key aspect of our financial management policy is that we do not use one-time revenue sources for ongoing expenses. When you do that, you are immediately creating an automatic unfunded increase in subsequent budget years. So we received a few questions about revenues and how are we projecting our revenues for FY26. Ordinarily, we would not show this level of detail until budget workshop 3, but I felt that it was important to include this information in workshop 2. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I will point out a few of them because I think it is important. Also, for everyone's reference, the percentage change is calculated between the 2025 revised and the 2026 proposed revenue projection. For example, on property taxes, our 2025 revised budget number is at $44.5 million. However, we are projecting to receive $50 million in property taxes this year. Because we are conservative budgeters and conservative in our revenue projections, we are only proposing $47.5 million in property taxes for FY26. Jumping down to the next large one, local option sales tax, which you see towards the bottom of the chart. Our 2025 budget is at $30 million, but we are projecting to receive just shy of $35 million. Therefore, we are proposing revenues of $31.5 million. Another reason for that number not going up higher is, as you all will recall, when we negotiated local option sales tax with Fulton County and all of the cities 3 years ago, there is a decrease in our share of those funds going forward until the end of the 10-year period. When you calculate all of the taxes, we are showing a 6% increase in revenues, which is still less than the projection actually collected for 2025. The next slide is the licenses and permits. Similarly, here we are calculating the percentage change between the revised and the 2026 proposed. You'll notice the largest increase item here is on building permits. In 2025, our budget is $1.5 million, and we're currently projecting to receive $2.58 million in 2025, but we are proposing that revenue number at $2 million. Next are charges for services. And here we're proposing a $30,000 increase in this in this category of revenue when compared to the revised 2025 budget. And then finally, other revenues includes municipal court fines, interest revenues, which you will see we are proposing a reduction in revenue this year simply because of changes in interest rates that are occurring. All of that adds up to a 9% reduction in other revenues this year. Finally, our summary and our total for revenue for this year, we are overall projecting a 5%, very modest organic growth in our revenue for 2026. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
So with licenses and permits and charges for service, well, actually just licenses and permits, because it's a lot of money, but, exactly how does that contribute to the general fund? Does it go into a particular,
No,
or just kind of?
it's in the general fund. So we account for them individually, so you know where the funds are coming in, but it's all part of the main general fund. They are not earmarked for specific reasons.
Thank you.
Okay?
May I ask you a quick question?
Sure. Yes, sir.
So I'm back on the last sheet.
Yep.
So the 2025 projected revenues, right now, we don't know for sure because we've still got a couple of months here.
Correct.
139.7 million. What are the projected expenses for 2025?
We're going to be under that, and you'll see more about that in Budget Workshop 3, because that's in the line item detail for all.
Okay, do you have any idea what magnitude, what it's going to be?
Tony, do you have that? You can pull it up. I just don't have it in my head right now.
You know, because every year when we budget, we get more revenue than we
Yep.
expected and we spend less than we expected. I'm
Correct.
trying to figure out come July 1, what is that delta?
Which helps us pay for capital projects the next year.
Of course, that's right, but I'm trying to figure it out, and if that's the reality, what we're dealing with this year, as opposed to what we forecast.
Right.
145 million, 643, 624 is what we're projecting.
145,
Yes.
Which, remember, includes use of fund balance from
Yeah, so that's-
prior year.
Yes.
that's fund balance, but that still was excess fund balance anyhow, above the minimum that we needed.
Yes, we see. Do we have excess fund balance above what we need?
No, no.
Yes.
We did last year,
We
Yes,
did last year.
Yes, we did.
and this brings, okay,
But this year we will too, right?
Which we're using to balance the budget, which you'll see at Workshop 3.
okay.
Okay. Next, we'll go through some questions that had been submitted. First, we received a request for a breakdown of professional services, legal professional services, auditors, consultants, engineers, and planners. Here is a detailed breakdown for legal professional services, comparison of budget to actual. Note that for 2025, we are still partly through the fiscal year, so that is not a full year of charges and expenses that are recorded there. Next, on litigation, you'll see a similar breakdown. Then the remaining slides on this question, because of the length of how all of these are accounted for, we thought it better to summarize them by department. And I'm happy to pull out the detail and go through any of this if you would like to, but this shows how we are still following our public-private partnership model by contracting with consultants, designers, engineers, and planners in many departments throughout the city.
I have a question.
Sure.
On the legal, for Freeman Mathis, it went from 222 to 11,000.
Mhm.
What, can you explain that?
Mr. Lee is a sole proprietor now. He's no longer,
When he was in 2024, we paid him 183. And then 220, and so that's,
that was part of the transition.
and so we saved like over 180,000 or so by bringing him on.
No, he's still a sole proprietor. He's just not going through Freeman, Mathis, and Gary now.
Oh, so we paid him 11,000 so far.
Correct. Well, no,
Well,
we should have no more for Freeman, Mathis, and Gary for general legal professional services. They are a provider of litigation assistance for us.
For the record, we're just seeing this for the first
Yeah.
time.
Mhm.
We have not been given this, I'm just, for anybody watching, we have not seen this.
No, this was a question that was asked.
I asked the
and
question.
we're responding to the question.
No, I'm just sharing that we're seeing it, all I'm sharing is that we're
Okay.
seeing it for the first time, and I appreciate it.
Mhm.
Just need a chance to digest
Sure.
it and maybe come back with some follow-up questions.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, then we also received a question what would the COLA be if it was reduced from the proposed 5% to a 4% COLA? And that would be a reduction of $525,000. The amounts that you see on this table reflect the actual cost of payroll in those funds, the city, the PAC, and in T-Splost.
So can I ask a question about, this was my question as well, others might have had it as well. Can we, so is COLA an automatic if you're employed here
And you're in good standing.
and you're in good standing? And did you have to be employed for the whole year?
Yes.
Okay, the whole fiscal year.
Well, calendar year, because these take effect in January.
Okay, and so this is an across the board increase?
Yes, and it's
This is not, let me ask, it's not merit based?
yes, because you're not going to receive it unless you have passed your evaluation.
Right, but this is not for extraordinary, this is just sort of keeping up with the Joneses.
It keeps our pay plan current.
Right,
Our bonus structure is specifically tied to exactly the score that the person receives on their annual evaluation.
and is this on top, this is over base or is it over total?
This is base.
Can you walk us through your thinking on 5% versus 6% versus 4% versus some other? And my question that I had submitted was, in light of, this all goes to retention. This is really, again, keeping up with the Joneses. This is not, which I understand this, for extraordinary performance, where I think we would have a goal of paying for extraordinary performance through whatever means. What is the landscape right now in competition for employees, turnover, and just the thinking on this? This is a big number for the budget, and at each point is a big number. And I think all around the country at the federal, state, and local level, people are trying to really be wise with how they do this. And it's not to say I don't value every employee. This is meant that this is a fiduciary level question that I think needs to be asked. What is your thinking? This is a big number, and and it's also a forward-looking basis. What is your thinking behind this number?
So my rationale for proposing 5% is multifaceted, as you can imagine. We start in typically around February of each year by calling our neighboring cities, who, let's face it, we compete for a very limited talent pool with all of our neighboring localities. And we try to discern exactly how much they are planning to offer. This council has made it a priority that you want us to be the employer of choice. And therefore, when we looked at the survey of what others were what they were thinking of offering, we knew that we needed to increase our pay plan to make sure that we were staying ahead of our competing localities. And to be completely candid, our turnover is in a good spot now. We can talk about those numbers. I can get that for you. It has gone down from what it was previously, but I know that it is a very limited pool of talent because, yes, there were layoffs at the federal level, but a lot of those federal skills don't readily translate to local government. So we are actively competing with other localities, not just in Georgia, but across the country for highly skilled local government employees. And to be honest with y'all, which I always am, people are not going into local government like they used to. They simply are just not choosing to go to work in local government. So we have to compete both with the private sector and with other.
Well, again, this is not related to merit. I'm a big believer in paying at or top of market for top of market talent. This is just sort of show up and sign your name to the test and you get a certain grade. I did think we have an obligation to think through this. This is a significant piece of the budget, $2 million. I mean, if it's 5 times that's $2.5 million COLA increase, almost 2.6 million. I think we need to, I just wanted to highlight it. And maybe there is some more data you can give us as it relates to turnover, your survey, your results, justification for doing this. I had another question I think I can take up as it related to compensation at the senior level, but maybe we could do that in executive session.
Sure. I'll be happy to share with you. The city charter is explicit that the city manager sets the pay plan and the salary of city employees.
Yes.
The city manager's salary, the mayor typically asks the HR director to conduct a salary survey each year. And then consulting with his fellow members of council sets the city manager's salary.
Yeah, my question was, my question wasn't, not needed to be defensive. My question was about checks and balances in this area, and if that's the beginning of the answer, that's a good answer. I just wanted to know who was reviewing it. And we have never, I get it, we just haven't been briefed on it.
Sure.
And I think, while the city manager does have that, authority, but the city manager does also answer to the council. And so as part of the compensation discussion, I was asking about checks and balances at senior level compensation. I'd certainly welcome comments from the, council colleagues on this COLA as well. I want to think it through. It's the first time I'm seeing the number.
I mean, I've talked to some other mayors and they all have seems like 5% COLA, and I'm a total believer that we need to pay our staff the best that we can to be competitive, because I think we just lost a good person to the private sector. I don't want to do that. They also get the bonus you're talking about. They also get a % raise.
That is the COLA.
The bonus.
That's the percent raise.
This is it, and then the bonus.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Question just about something separate.
Okay.
I'm trying to find where we account for, or where we'll account for, any revenue we receive for parking. Like at city space, is that gonna be facility
That,
or miscellaneous?
Tony, does that go into PFA? Let us pull that.
Since we have something this year.
Oh, that's. So the new agreement with 12 Oaks
Right.
states that we are not going to receive revenue until they reach a certain threshold. With Liberty, we had not been collecting any. 12 Oaks are doing very well. The numbers are looking good. I can't give you a projection on when we're going to receive money, but we'll give you a rundown of that in the next meeting.
So do we include that in the budget, or it's just?
We haven't
It's
been.
hard to project.
We haven't been including it because we haven't been receiving anything.
Right.
So we will look at the numbers and see where that needs to go in here.
Because we do anticipate for fiscal year 2026 probably.
I think there's a likelihood there could be some, but I don't think it will be.
It wasn't very much if I recall.
No.
I don't think it was in.
Yeah, I just want to know where we could find it in the budget, just to keep an eye on it.
Yeah.
We didn't add a line item yet for it. And as Eden indicated, we're not anticipating budgeting for it for next fiscal year, so you're not gonna see it right now in the line item detail.
Okay, so we're not budgeting for it for 26.
We will go back and look at it, but we haven't in what we have been doing so far because we haven't received any parking revenue.
Got
it. Okay. Next up is Chief DeSimone to answer some questions about the police department.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Had some questions from the last meeting. The first one was on traffic citations. These are updated numbers. Number one, obviously, is speeding. Second is following too closely, tailgating. Expired registration. One reason we have a lot more expired registration citations is probably because of the automatic license plate reader feature will tell you when a vehicle comes through an intersection or passes an ALPR that there is it's expired. I'll actually give you a notice of that. Any other questions on this? Yes, sir.
One of the things that drives me crazy, of course, is these people doing this while they're driving. Where do we put down the distractive? And do we
Yes,
do
we-
a number of that? Do we do much of that where we actually pull people over for,
Yeah, we do,
Distracted
but it
driving.
didn't hit the top 10.
it's what?
It did not hit the top 10.
Did not hit the top
Did
10.
not
I
hit
would
the
think
top
that would be one of the top ones.
Yeah,
I see so much of it around town. But then again, I guess when people see a police car, they put their phone down.
right, usually. Any questions on driving on roadway lane for traffic?
Gee,
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about the driving on roadway lane for traffic.
Yes.
So, okay, so I've heard a lot of complaints about the car companies putting their, the transport trucks in the middle and taking the cars out. And it's very distracting, especially around North Springs. And I noticed the other day that they were able to put it on the lane that's closest, I guess the turn-in lane to their store or.
Yes,
whatever. So I'm wondering, like, do we ticket them for that?
we normally don't ticket them because they're trying to conduct business. So we tell them to move over to where it's maybe a little more convenient. But a lot of those dealerships, there's not a real good spot in there for them to do it. So they pull over to the shoulder of the road, and that's where they unload and load vehicles.
I don't mind the shoulder of the road, it's in the middle.
In the middle. Yeah, we try to get them out of the middle, but normally we don't cite them because then you all would be getting a lot of calls from the businesses saying, hey, we're trying to conduct business here. Sandy Springs is not good for business. So we try to be very, use our discretion wisely on that.
But they know how we feel about it.
They do. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I'm surprised I didn't have this a question on driving on roadway lane for traffic.
What is it?
Exactly. I was like, what is this? And so my traffic guys tell me it's weaving, but that's what the state of Georgia calls it. Yeah, weaving, probably from distracted driving. So, each state has something they call it differently. In North Carolina, it's called left of center, which left of center means left of the center line. In Georgia, it's called driving on a roadway lane for traffic.
I thought that was in the middle because so many people drive in the middle of the turn lanes.
If they weave and go over into the middle, what we call the suicide lane, then you can cite them for that. I had a question on the LPRs, license plate readers. These are the numbers we have. Flock Safety, Genetec are the two big vendors. Of interest for everyone is the Axon Fleet 3, the newest dash cameras we went to in the cars. They actually have an ALPR built into it. So.
And they didn't before?
They did not before. It's new technology, which is great because it's recording all these plates. So an officer may not necessarily know there's a stolen car. It may not even be reported stolen yet. He's behind it. It captures it. And then an hour later, when they call it in, they can look at the system and say, oh, wait, an officer in the North District was right behind that an hour ago, and he was going north on Roswell Road. And it sort of helps you with your investigation. So technology is actually pretty amazing.
How long does it take once a car's stolen for it to get into the system?
Depends how long it takes to report it. It could
Once
be,
it's reported, it gets immediately.
yes. I mean, but we have some, actually a firefighter had his vehicle stolen at the airport, and you don't put it in until you get back from your vacation. So it could be, depending on firefighters, they get long vacations. So, it could be weeks. I'm sorry, I had to do that.
I assume the one replacements are all going into this newer technology now.
Yes, sir. Yeah. The technology is
Is
absolutely.
it real expensive?
I don't think any more than normal. It's just like TVs, this back in the day was, how technology gets better and the prices sometimes go down. Here's some more, we have privately owned flocks that are in the city that we have access to the reads on. And then over 3,000 law enforcement agencies, not 3,000 cameras, 3,000 police and sheriff's agencies in the country use Flock LPRs. And just interesting tidbit here, the CEO of Flock years ago came to see me carrying a little briefcase with a guy about this idea he had. And I sort of shot some holes in it, said, hey, it's a pretty good idea. Became Flock
Did
Safety.
you invest in it?
I didn't. I wish I would have, but yeah, it was, he's a Georgia Tech grad, lives right down in Garden Hills. And
Well, next time that happens, you tell us to.
I will. Yeah, there's been several, Fusus was another one that came. And you all saw it at the Intelligence Operations Center at the new police department. Question on speed zone cameras in schools. Here are the numbers. Obviously a whole lot more around North Springs High School than Riverwood.
What does that mean? They've been denied.
The police department reviews them and they say this should not be issued as a citation. The biggest reason is a tree fell and hit one of the signs and knocked it. So you got to have warning so far in front of the school, and a tree fell and knocked the warning sign off. So when we figured that out, we avoided those tickets, or not avoid, just didn't send them out.
Why are there none at Riverwood?
You drive safely on that.
I'm just saying, it just looks like you would think there'd at least be one.
No, that's that they haven't been paid.
Oh,
Look at the top line.
Okay, got it.
So there have been citations issued there. And the one at North Springs is obviously Roswell Road, so it is a larger traffic volume.
So someone's already got a second.
Yes,
Just one, yeah. Haven't learned the lesson yet.
Ouch.
but you wonder if they paid.
they did pay.
Okay.
That's at the bottom.
All
All
right.
right.
Any questions?
But Chief, I got a quick question for you.
Yes, sir.
This morning, we're listening to you and the other police chiefs talk, and was it Brookhaven was talking about their drone program?
Yes.
And you and I have talked informally about the drone program. Where are we, SSPD, when it comes to drones and use of drones and this idea of expanding it like they've been talking?
We're looking into it, but we want them to experiment with it first to make sure it works, because yeah, I mean, it's a good program, but there's a lot of limitations to it. And one is weather, 24-hour operations. And right now you have to have somebody standing on the building at all times before you can get the drone up.
Operating it.
Yeah,
Watching it.
and watching it.
You gotta have eyes on it
So
too.
you've got to have a person up there 20, as long as you're running the drone to operate it.
Hmm.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, it's an interesting concept. Let's see how reality treats it.
Yeah, interesting concept. With the number of cameras we have out in the city already that we can tap into, it's actually faster than the drone. Because the camera's already there. You're launching, sending out the drone to get over an area. And in these areas where we have a lot of calls, we already have cameras there.
How many cameras do we have out?
135 traffic cameras.
Excuse me?
135 traffic cameras.
Do we have cameras at the top of buildings?
We have, I was just talking to the head of security at the King and Queen building. We have one on
Yeah.
top of the King or Queen. And I said, hey, we probably need to get some more up there to have a better, more fields of view. So we're going to take some people up there, go on the roof and see what's a good place to put it.
You can see everything.
Yeah.
Drones are a challenge when you've got as many trees as we have.
That's a challenge.
Kid
And
across the street keeps losing, he's got one, he keeps losing his in the tree.
yeah. I don't want to shoot down drones, no pun intended, but they still have some work to do.
Okay, thank you.
Afternoon. I love you, Chief. So there was a question that was asked about our CPR training. In 2024, 646 participants were trained in CPR. And we will be offering some pre-certification classes for folks. You'll see that come out on our social media in the next couple of weeks. Structure fires, this is a breakdown of the fires in the city in 2024, 8 commercial, 22 residential fires, and multifamily residential fires of 19, and 2 were canceled while en route. Total of 51. Our fire marshal's office is doing an excellent job.
So multifamily residents, for example, for the 19, would that mean 19 different communities? Or is it possible for multiple structure fires?
It could
in the same
be
community?
multiple. I mean, that's just total for the entire city.
And that's every incident
All,
counted
that's
separate.
correct. That's correct.
Every,
Every incident. The breakdown of false alarms, probably a question about parking areas, that is parking decks. We have a number of, a lot of parking decks, commercial in our apartment complexes as well. What we have in there is cars that overheat, set off the alarm, and then we often have to, we respond as if it is a structure fire because we have to. When we get there, there are false alarms. The river was an actual building. It was an actual, it should have been taken out, but it was an EMS call where they actually called in a medical emergency, but it was a false alarm.
So hang on, Chief. So you're saying the commercial false alarms are because of mostly because of a car and a parking?
No, sir, I'm talking about just these parking areas.
Okay, okay.
You got your commercial buildings, multifamily fire alarms, single family fire alarms.
And then
We're
parking-
required to respond to all those. And then the parking areas is the parking decks. It's like ours downstairs. If we get, a car that's overheated, it starts smoking, it sets off the alarm. It's really not a structure fire.
So the river really didn't catch fire.
The river did not get, I asked that question and we pulled that up this week and it was actually a medical alarm. Lift assist, if you recall, you passed an ordinance where we would bill for lift assist, non-emergency lift assist. These are the complexes where are actually the facilities that have personnel there, but they do not touch the patient if they have fallen and uninjured. We had 29 of those. We've seen a significant decrease in the number of requests since the ordinance was implemented. We educated, but out of them, we billed 29 of them. This open invoices actually today, this was done last week, but actually today we received another $4,000. So it's actually 17,000 now.
9,000.
And our paramedicine, excuse me, it's down 9,000, but our paramedicine medic is now hand delivering these invoices to the facilities. Our community paramedicine program, Paul is doing an excellent job for us. You remember our efforts here are to educate. It's also to identify those frequent users of 911 where there's not an emergency event, but they're really putting a load on the 911 system, sending a truck out to check on them or to respond to an emergency call when it's really not an emergency. We've identified, Paul has identified 93, 19 of those clients were actually enrolled in the program to where he has spent a lot of time educating them, working with their doctors and pulling them out of the 911 system. And the $30,000 is a fee that we look at where Paul has responded versus sending a fire truck. It's shown a savings of $30,000 for us so far. He spends a lot of time educating in our facilities. You'll notice there our wellness clinics he's offering in March, April, May, and June, July, these programs where he goes in and actually educates the community there.
What is community member encounter? Does that just mean event? 97 so the 97 community member encounters, what does that mean?
The 97 is the attendees. Those are the ones that's actually attended the events that he has held there at the facilities.
Should that be a bigger number?
No, that's the only people that actually attended.
I mean, are there like 5 times that actually working that don't come to these things?
They live there. There's more that live there that doesn't attend. And we're trying to work on, he's trying to work with the management of those facilities to encourage. We can't force them to come to the meetings, but these are the ones. But really what he's done is this, in this as well, is identified those within those communities that call a lot to 911 and he's really focused on getting them to attend the meetings.
So Chief, just a question. I didn't see Hammond Glen. I mean, that's another kind of assisted retirement community. We don't get a lot of calls from them.
We do, but he just mentioned the ones that we get the most calls from.
Okay.
Yep.
So I didn't know if we do any wellness. clinics.
He's still going to hit every facility that we have. Yep. So the other discussion was the cost estimation for the fire station 1 proposal, that $573 per square foot. There's a lot of pricing that's involved in the estimates that we received from Croft. but this is, in that estimated total cost project. You know, there were several contingencies that are in there as well, and didn't know if you had any more explanation for those. Or request any more information on that price. As I shared with
Just
you,
a concept of, these are concept prices.
That's exactly
No one's got a
right.
drawing, no one's got any details.
that's correct.
It's just a huge number, Chief.
I understand it is.
Okay.
And this was just a, one rendering of the station, which I'm sure will change if approved. So when we talk about Station 4 response data, we've updated that data to really try to give you a picture of the need, the urgency of getting this station in the city as well. If you recall some background, in 2014, April of 14, the city purchased the fire station, which is now our Fire Station 4. It is known as Atlanta Fire Station 39 District. In that agreement the city signed with them, they have a first right of refusal within 30 days if they want to purchase that to maintain fire services there. They will have to pay market value. And we are not allowed to bill the city of Atlanta for services unless we are on the scene or of an incident greater than 24 hours. This gives you a picture of every response that this engine or ladder truck has responded into the city of Atlanta from January of 2021 through December of 2024, which gives you a 4-year snapshot of the incidences. If you'll notice here, the purple outline here, that is the Station 39 district. To give you a better understanding of the importance of that is, when Atlanta when they dispatch out our truck, they dispatch out Quint 4, which responds to any Atlanta 911 call for service in that purple area, just as if it was Atlanta fire truck. It's dedicated to them, it's dedicated to us, but if they're in there, they get the first call for Atlanta. The outside of that purple line are the calls where we responded as if it was a Station 39 engine responding to another call in another territory because that particular Atlanta truck is out on another call. Same thing that happens here in Sandy Springs. So the calls that they have responded to was required calls, responses, and you see some of them extended way below 85. But that's a 4-year period.
Chief,
Yes.
at that fire station, I happened to go by there the other day. Do we keep some of our trucks there and then they keep some of theirs?
No Atlanta trucks are housed there. Those are Rocky Brothers. You'll see 3 trucks there, but one of those is a reserve. And our logistics facility is in the basement there. We also do mechanical work on the trucks there, have it performed. So if you look at the citywide incidences, this is citywide for the city of Sandy Springs, 12,175. Inside the city limits of Sandy Springs, we respond to 11,732. Outside the city limits, this would be all the automatic aids that we have with Atlanta as well as Roswell, was a total of 443 calls. That's automatic aid and mutual aid. The incidences in the Atlanta with the automatic and the mutual, 347 of those 443 were all Atlanta calls. So the apparatus counts of responses, the total minutes that we were committed on calls inside the city of Atlanta were 10,197. Total hours of commitment that we had on Atlanta calls was right at 170. Total hours. Average call commitment was 31 minutes that our truck was committed to Atlanta call and could not respond into Sandy Springs.
Chief, we were under the impression that a lot more time was going into the city of Atlanta. So what you're telling us is really not that much time.
Well,
It is.
it is time. I mean, they get priority if they get dispatched. You know, we cannot not respond, but it is a significant amount of time.
What percentage of that station is it though? Because I
14.
assume the 12,000 is total
It's
fire.
14%.
Pardon?
14% of our
14%?
total calls, yep.
How do you calculate the 14? Is that on slide 33?
We calculated the 14 based upon our total calls the city really responds to, and then taking out that total fire calls that go into Atlanta.
So is the 347 and the 12,000 in
Correct.
terms of numbers? Okay, because
That's only 4%.
yeah, that comes out to, if you use the 347, it's actually less than 3%.
I will have to get you the formula.
14% of that station is my understanding.
Yeah, I believe that's
That is correct.
the correct number
It's not 14% of the call.
of the 12,000, but of that station. I will get you that answer.
Based on that chart that you showed, the graph that you showed, if we then went to new station inside our, they're gonna have a pretty big gap to fill.
Well, I'm not going to speak for them, but under their ISO requirements, they would have to either put trucks in there and staff it, or they take the impact from the ISO loss. We don't gain anything from Atlanta by being there. They gain an entire station and personnel and trucks.
What we gained for 14, for all these years was the fire station,
That's
Yeah.
correct.
but at some cost.
That's correct.
I thought it was worse, that's all.
Well, then, when you get to the total price, go to the next one, chief. This is the one that shows you the total cost of providing those services based off of the entire budget for the fire department.
So the 1538 comes from you taking the budget for the fire department
Mhm.
and maybe dividing it
By
by call?
calls per service, by that total number of calls to calculate that cost per call number that you see, the 1538. And then you multiply that by the 345 to give you the 530.
And of course, that bottom number is a total. That's
It's
not
over
cost.
3 years, right?
But on
Well,
the
the
other-
cost per call is not the accurate. But that's
It's
the
the-
total. It's not 530 per call, but it's the total.
No, 530, that's the total cost.
Yeah, that's the total, sorry.
But on the other slide, it shows total cost for the past 3 years is 117,000.
Those are just actual man hours. That doesn't include all the overhead of operating the department. Can you, yes,
That's all of it.
or excuse me, person hours, staff hours.
So what's your conclusion? I mean,
Well, the conclusion is this is one example. We
Right.
never know when this call is going to come up. This is one example
Right.
of our truck and personnel being
Right.
committed on one call for 2 hours.
That's right.
And that happens, it happens not often, but it happens regularly in response. We never know.
The conclusion is we should have a station inside Sandy Springs.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
That's, I agree.
Yes.
That is.
Right, We're getting the
conclusion.
data behind it, but.
That is the
for-
conclusion.
One of the reasons is it's being pulled to Atlanta as a priority.
And the other challenge
Give
we
priority to Sandy Springs.
That's correct. The other challenge we run into, Councilman, is, so if you see where our stations are located, and this is Station 4, which is down in Atlanta. I was asked, when I showed you the heat map, Councilman Paulson
Yeah.
asked, what are those calls in the medical area? Why are we, what are all those calls? So we have broken those calls down. This is for all of 2024. If you'll notice, when you remove the EMS calls, there was 542, 100 good intent calls, 48 were some type of fire, whether it be structure fire, vehicle fire, fire too close to a building. Service responses, 22, false alarms, 19. There was 754 calls where you see highlighted in that area. When you bring that out and look at only structure fires, this is where you see structure fires have been, this being Roswell Road, this being Peachtree Dunwoody, where our concentration over a year, the darker the color, the yellow is the more intensity of the fire. This is anywhere from the Prado south to, I would say, that the most Belle Isle Road. But you see where it's at. This type of data affects our decisions, should affect our decisions on where we locate fire stations in the future. These are the same, these are the dots of incidences. The darker the dot, the geographical location is where the fire occurred in that area. So when we look in the future for station locations, our goal is, question was asked a while back about what is our response times compared to other cities? ISO recommends a maximum of 5 miles for each fire station or less to get our effective firefighting force on the scene as quick as possible. If you'll notice here, the square mileage, the further our fire stations are away, the more traffic that we have to deal with, the longer our response times are. That 90th percentile is what affects our ISO rating. We are an ISO 1, less than a 91. 90 to 91 is where we're at with our ISO. So if that response time continues to get longer in 6 years, when we're evaluated again, we're going to be challenged if we don't really consider strategically where to locate Station 4 and to get it in as soon as possible. And I thought this was a good chart to show we're doing covering 39 square miles with five locations out of 5 locations. When you compare us to Alpharetta, 27, they have 6. Marietta has 6 with 24.
So Ian, how are we gonna budget? So, I mean, my comment last time and for the southern part, and I think your answers were that all things being equal, this is equal. We need to make sure this is an equally high priority. We have 2 high priorities and both are priorities. So how do we budget for this? How do you budget for this?
So what I'd like to hear from the group is if there is a desire for us to work in an additional debt issuance. We have been actively working on locating another location that will meet the delivery, the response times that Chief Sanders talked about. I plan to brief y'all in a special called closed session, since it's a property matter, in the next week on where that is, so that we can
Okay, so
talk
we have a little bit of
through
time to
We
get
do.
that information and.
Chief, can you go back 2 slides? I think 2 slides. The one that has the hospital, one more. There you go. So I'm looking at, this is the same thing we've been talking about. And by the way, I sold a station wagon, so we can't use it for the hospital calls. The good intent and the EMS calls are, a lot of them are in that obviously Bill Hill area. Is there a better way for us to service those needs? And I'm thinking about the new truck that we just bought that has the emergency response capabilities. Is there something like that that would take care of this so that we don't have to send, everything over there?
Well,
It's such a unique.
We could staff that truck, but as of today, today's a perfect illustration. We get a cardiac arrest call on Glen Lake at one of our facilities. Yes, they have a nurse on staff, but the nurse does not have the authority to push certain cardiac drugs using a defibrillator. They don't have some of that equipment there, but they really don't have the authority that our paramedics do because of state law. When our medics get on the scene, they bring the intervention with them. They have a lot of stuff there at the facilities, but sometimes they just have an LPN there, but they still can't do what a paramedic can do. So we still are going to have to respond We no longer respond to the Alpha and the Bravo calls. But when it comes to the Charlie, Delta, and Echo, we do send. We've given our supervisors and our paramedics more discretion to listen to that call and read the notes and cancel off of it. No other fire department does that but us.
Yeah.
And I'm frowned on because of doing it, but we don't need to send that resource if necessary. But we still cannot not respond
Okay.
to those incidences. And we never know, a lot of times we get there difficulty breathing and they're in full arrest. But then we learn they're a do not resuscitate. So you never know until you get on the scene of that incident. And always remember, I've got to have the pair of hands, more than one person on that scene to help successfully work that event.
So you're trying to figure out the smartest way to do this.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And there's not a doubt in my mind, should Station 4 be built in the future closer to that location, I would definitely look at putting that MRU in that area and staff it with at least one person to respond instead of a large apparatus.
Eden, have we talked to the hospitals about any space that they have available? It's like the fire station that's at Phipps Plaza. I think it's still there, but I know that there's been some collaboration with hospitals and fire stations. Have we, because they just opened that new hospital, so I don't know if they have.
Part of the challenge is that would leave us with a longer response time to get to the southwest corner of the city. So we really, Chief, if you go to the next slide, I think it had the heat map. But no, the way, that one, we really need to make sure that we can get down into this area and try to be, if you're closer to this red dot, then you're further away from being able to respond there.
So where's the ideal area then?
In the Roswell Road corridor, south of 285.
Right.
Okay.
Any other question? Thank you.
All right. Next, Brent's there. Go ahead, Brent. Thank you.
Evening, Wings. Afternoon, council.
Afternoon.
Some of the questions that y'all had for my department were the expansion of, or not the expansion, the repairs for the Racket Center, proposed renovation. Again, estimated project cost is $1,015,378. That does include some design costs for improvements. Primarily, it's some aesthetic things. There is some structural concerns with the building as well, and then also some modifications to help with programming. Fortunately, some of you were able to come over and take a walk through the facility and see some of the challenges that we have over there and why we're asking for this money. But again, just to sum it up, interior painting throughout the facility, tile floor replacement on the upper level, restroom renovation on the upper level, expansion and replacement of the existing deck, which all of you saw the structural concerns with that. Commercial, commercial door installation. Right now we have what I call the Winn-Dixie doors that open and close automatically. We would like some modern storefront doors that match what we have here at City Hall. Sidewalk replacement, you can actually see it in this photo, is kind of a patchwork of concrete repairs and grinding that has occurred over the years out there. So we would like to replace all that concrete. And then some exterior building enhancements. The facility is aged, it's dated. It needs some new kind of pick up the exterior and make it look a little nicer. And the exterior glass replacement includes an opportunity to do some new storefront doors that would open to the stadium seating area with a new pickleball installation. We do want to make that a venue to attract more commercial rentals and larger events. So we'll create this indoor-outdoor space for them to be able to bend out of. The second picture on this slide is the deck. It is Trex material on the deck, but the structure is all wood and has a lot of rot. So it's concerning. The next picture is of the lobby space. Again, we'd like to renovate that, bring it more up to a modern look with some additional new tile and some painting. The structure of the building is all concrete. It has a lot of opportunity to do some enhancements without having to demolish it, which will be cost effective for that building. And then the last slide is the aged restroom. The hand dryers don't work. It's very dated, and needs to be brought up to current ADA standards. So that'll answer any questions that you have.
Yeah, I know that building is probably 50 years old. I don't know exactly, but it needs a lot more than $1 million of spent time. I mean, you didn't even touch the surface, I don't think. So I would prefer that we look at some other options. Just that instead of putting $1 million into, put good money after bad. Eden, I'd like to hold off on this and look at some other options.
Tell you, we don't do some remediation. We've got some dangers over there. We've got a deck that can collapse. And I think there's some liability issues if we don't do some remediation. That deck is in pretty bad shape. The arbor at the front door is rotted, collapse and fall at any time.
How did we get to this place?
It's neglected maintenance.
I'm sorry?
So we just haven't maintained it as well as we should.
The city.
Yeah.
Well, the facility was built in, I believe, 74, is that right?
Do we have this issue elsewhere in the city?
Hammond.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a failure to adequately fund these.
And
We
these
need
are.
to look at it like our Parks and Rec and then.
Well, and that's part of doing the Parks Master Plan to lead towards, if council would like to do a referendum to have a dedicated fund source. That's the financial reality. We don't have a dedicated fund source right now to be able, because to everyone's point, new fire stations are definitely a public safety priority. But I would say they would come before our parks, and we have limited capacity without another revenue source. to do
Change the
that.
tone. I've been asking about this for years, so I'm
I'm
glad
sorry.
I've been asking about this for years. I'm glad we're having the conversation.
Well, we put most of the money into the courts. We've upgraded the courts, turned them into pickleballs, courts. There's been a lot of things that are going on over there, but the building itself has not been a priority for when we do the budgets. So
Well, we have a lot of issues with Parks and Rec, soccer fields. We need a master plan. I agree with you that we should fix things that are dangerous. But to put $1 million into something that really needs to be torn down or rebuilt, I think is a waste of taxpayer dollars.
well, the bones of the building are pretty good. It's post and timber construction, which is in good, that part's in good shape. It just needs to be updated, modernized, and there's some.
Is that based on a report that you've seen?
Pardon?
Is that based on a report you've seen, or is
It's
that
based on the
your
visit that we
inspection?
made over there and inspected the facility.
Your inspection?
Well, but we all went over and saw it.
I'm sorry, do we have a report to back up that comment by the mayor?
We have the facility assessment that was.
So that the bones
prior
are
to
pretty good?
beginning
I'd like to
here.
see
And it's a
that.
concrete structure. It does have post and timber roof, which actually you can see.
That
That doesn't address obsolescence. too.
and North Springs was a brick building with had good bones, but it needed to be rebuilt. This.
So it's all concrete deck, concrete exterior, concrete. These are all concrete posts.
I don't know what the foundation, I didn't inspect the foundation, so.
You recall a couple of years ago, we had an opportunity to sell this facility and council decided not to. So that was another reason why we haven't. We were discussing selling it and then moving the tennis center to another location. And while that was going on and the conversation was going on, we focused on upgrading the courts, which is where most of the activity has occurred, and those are in pretty good shape. It's just this facility needs it's got some weathered wood and other issues. That area there where you see to the right, it's mold and slime, and if you walk out there, it's a slip hazard. The framing of it is weathered pretty badly. Say the arbor to the front is in desperate need of replacement. And then there's just down in the area, there's some great space down there that's just really not usable because it's antiquated.
Well, I think good analogy to this is sort of like the Heritage Building. You can keep kind of putting some lipstick on it. Kind of continue along where the city can make a decision to have that X factor with our facilities. Up to the people.
I have a suggestion here. There are a couple things here that are safety issues. The deck is one in particular that is scary. In fact, we almost lost Melissa. Thank God she is quick on her feet, okay?
I think most lost her.
And then the arbor in front, it's just bold. So in terms of minimum things to do to keep this up to at least some nominal level of safety and security, I think you could break this list into two parts. One is those items, and then the second is the longer term items. And if we can do that this year, while we do this study of, what our needs actually are, that allows us to make a smart decision, but at least we prepared the stuff here that has the potential to actually be injured.
Are you ready to support going forward and thinking about a bond?
I'm interested in hearing and talking more about it. I've always been interested in hearing more details about it. It's just a matter of, it's a concept.
Glad to hear that. We've been
Well,
talking about this for years.
It's always been a 30,000 foot concept. Drilling down into the details of what it might include, it's always interesting. And if we're ever gonna go to the community with this, we've got to make a case for it.
Well, the community needs to make the case for it as well, but I'm glad to hear that. This has been a topic for years. Finally, we're getting there. It's leadership.
Well, that's my suggestion. Pull ones out of there
I
that just
agree
have
with
to be
that
done.
suggestion.
We have these itemized in a quote from an engineer, so we can do that easily.
Thank you.
Can someone remind me what the timeline is on the master planning? I think you were about it in our last budget meeting. I just might even be here.
So we'll put out the solicitation once the budget's approved.
Oh, right.
Like us
It's an item this year.
Yes, ma'am.
It's not
It's in-
something- Got it. No.
So is that for a master, an update plan or is this just to get these done?
The master plan is holistic of the entire city Parks Department.
And that will take into account this facility?
It'll make suggestions as to how to treat our facilities. To y'all's point, what we want is a working document that shows true timeline costs associated with some of these facilities and how we prioritize what those are, what order they are, short, mid, and long-term projects for all of our properties.
So it won't go to the level of detail like we did with the SSPD municipal court where we were able to reuse some of the building and then we added to it. It's not going to go to that level. And I think that was part of the conversation earlier. Is this we can reuse what's there? Do we have to tear it down and rebuild or move it?
I think it'll have more general comments about each facility. It won't give us a floor plan. It can be whatever we want it to be, truly. I mean, we can task the firm that we hire to give us whatever level of detail we want. Typically, it gives you a 15 to 20-year work plan with some short, mid, and long-term projects. The shorter term projects are much more detailed. We can have them assess each facility and give us ideas of how to reuse them or not. They can give us lifespan of those facilities, whether or not we want to salvage them or not. So those are questions we can work through once we hire the firm as to what level of detail.
So are we talking about, okay, so just so I'm clear, which plan are we talking about upgrading or updating, or are we creating a new plan of something?
So currently we're doing the master plan for a recreation facility at Hammond. That is one that y'all.
So that's specific to that site,
Correct.
okay?
And then the overall parks master plan is for the entire city facilities, future development of the Parks Department, looking at the trends, looking at what the desires are of the community, and making sure we're hitting benchmarks that we need to as a department, but also planning for the future of whatever those trends are as they grow.
So that plan was from what, 2019?
That's correct.
And so we're going to be looking to do a full update or partial update to that?
Yes. It'll be, well, so a full update to that, but I'm looking for more specific tasks with that. The last plan had a lot of demographics in it, had a lot of data about what we need to offer, but I'm looking for some things that address facilities specifically that we have and also what we need to be looking at building in the future.
So, and that funding request will be part of what we'll see today, or?
It was already in the capital assumptions.
So that would be to do this updated plan.
Let me say, Brad, thank you. You've been a breath of fresh air. You know, in the last couple of months when we talked about the nonprofit funding, you acknowledged we have more demand than we can meet. Is that right?
Yes.
And I hear you now saying all across the city, we have facilities that frankly need attention. Is that right?
Correct.
And for this city to be the wow X factor, we just have some fundamental decisions to be made. I feel like we put this off for years and years. And I'm glad to see you and I appreciate you sort of bringing that discussion to the fore and answering honestly that, look, if we want this city to have first-rate programming facilities, we got to step up.
Yeah, we've got the great bones of a great department. We have some great facilities.
You do.
And we do some phenomenal programming in what we have, but you know, we do have some needs and there's some challenges out there.
Sure
in the
do.
facilities we do have.
I have a question. You mentioned, I know we.
Got one bit on the table.
I have for years, Rusty.
You haven't
Needed
made
leadership.
You haven't made a specific.
Needs leadership, Rusty.
I brought the idea of selling that facility.
Yeah.
And putting it over on.
You get it done?
You voted against it.
That's not true.
I
Yes,
voted
it is.
for it.
You voted for it, and you opposed it.
Yeah, and then
You opposed it.
Rusty, go back to that. Some of that was, go back to that. Yeah, how did you want to spend another 15 million? It was supposed to be a
It wasn't
replacement property.
15, it would cost another $3 million to have a complete, less than.
$3 million?
Yes.
That's a lot.
It's not-
That is a lot.
Look, this is not the time to have this.
Well, but we
this
talked
is not-
about,
General,
hold on a
this is
second,
not
we
the
talked
time.
about a bond for years and I heard people poo-poo that forever. Oh, yeah, Rusty,
General, this is
I
not
have
the
a
time to
question.
have this discussion.
we will, but we can talk about the bond and leadership on these issues. We're going to.
Okay. The Hammond Park plan, did you say that was separate than the master? We're doing one for Hammond and then we're doing a master?
So we're doing a specific plan right now that we're currently in that we've.
Well, Hammond is under,
But why are we doing that? Why are we doing a separate one for Hammond? That's just,
Hammond's already in the process of being done.
Correct.
And what you're saying is, we'll complete the Hammond separately, but then go ahead and redo the plan we did, I think it was in 2019.
Correct.
That one has to be redone, where Hammond is already in progress.
what part of the progress is, you're saying?
I don't know how far it is, how far in progress is the Hammond plan?
So we've done staff meetings, we've met with you guys, we've done site visits halfway. We're doing more site visits tomorrow, touring other.
Would you say it's 20% done, 50% done?
Yeah, I'd say 20% is probably.
20% done, but it's already in process.
That's correct.
Right, and the rest of the park master plan would have to be updated from the old plan.
Correct.
Okay. So it's two separate plans.
Right, and that probably is gonna take, how long do we think like that plan would take to update the larger one?
The comprehensive parks master plan, they usually run about 6 to 8 months because there's a lot of public input, a lot of online input, on-site input, meetings with you guys, progress report.
I would like to really discuss that before we even start talking about a plan, because we can look at it as we're going to drop a bond or whatever, and then look at it in that way, or look at it just fixing things up. So I don't know how to go about doing that, but there's a big difference in how much money we would spend if we're just.
You know how we go about it? We express the will to do it. That's our job, is to set the policy. I agree with you. We set the policy and then that's how we go about it.
I'm saying I want to, yes, I would like to discuss it in a nice way, all of us. Because.
Right, we've been trying for years.
Thanks, Brent.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Bill.
Good afternoon, everyone. So a question came up last meeting about the numbers of the signature events that we've listed. Farmers Market went 30 days. We did cancel one due to weather. City Green Live, 5 were scheduled, 4 completed. The last one was canceled for severe weather. Concerts by the Springs, we had 5. Sundown Social ran for 20 with 1 weather-related cancellation. And then Movies by Moonlight, we had 3. The new question came in, how much are we willing to give and what do we expect to receive in return from presenting partners? Which is an interesting question. Because for the last 3 years, the PAC has operated without drawing from the general fund. And if we were to increase anything with presenting partners, I would need to have the council come to me and say, we're no longer concerned about drawing from the general fund. So it'd be a big position change that would have to come from council. And I'm happy to look at what we would do if that was the new direction.
So let me chime in here. The policy direction that had been given by council for the last 3 fiscal years is that you wanted the PAC to perform on its own without a transfer from the general fund to subsidize the operations. And that's what we have done with the last 3 fiscal years. And it's slated to continue with that in FY 26. Unless there is a change in that policy, the PAC does not have any additional revenue to be able to make any additional changes to the presenting partner policy right now.
I have a few questions.
Okay.
All right, so I just want to be clear, the cost for operations are completely covered by the revenue that the PAC receives for concerts and all that other good stuff.
And to transfer from the hospitality fund. So hotel motel tax does support.
Which is like 2 million.
Okay. And that includes staffing.
Correct.
All that. Okay. And with that revenue, part of its operations is the PAC funds completely all of our community events.
Signature events, yes.
Lantern Parade, for example, which doesn't even have on this campus, but it does fund our, just anything that we do community-wide. Okay. Well, I do have an opinion that I do have an opinion that things like, you know, our 4th of July fireworks, Stars and Stripes, things like the Lantern Parade. It would not, I do not balk at the idea of spending some of our general fund dollars specifically subsidizing some of those free community events that are really a benefit. Right now, if I understand correctly, no general fund dollars go toward any of those events.
Correct.
Right. So that wouldn't be something I would balk at. We don't buy a firecracker. You know what I mean? We don't pay for anything for the Martin Luther King, any of the other events. So, I mean, that's just a perspective.
I agree with you. How much are we talking about?
Or
If you needed to, how much more money would you need from the general fund? Is there a dollar amount that you're?
we could work up that dollar amount. And it would be based on restructuring some things. So I don't have that number off the top of my head.
I mean, I think that's a great use of our funds, because it's for the public, it's for our families, it's for the people that come here, visit here. I have no problem with
And
it.
Sparkle Parade is over $200,000. And we don't pay any of that. The Sparkle Parade costs over $200,000 to deliver. And we don't pay any of that. That's all paid from tickets and things they sell.
And rentals.
And rentals, right, sorry.
And rentals.
Rental.
So I guess I'm confused. Are you saying there's so much more you could do if we subsidized from the general fund your operation, or is that what you're asking?
What we're saying is unless there is a desire to provide a transfer from the general fund, we are not in a financial position. The PAC is not to be able to expand the presenting partner program to provide additional incentives to nonprofits who wish to be or continue as presenting.
I thought I
partners.
heard Dr. Kelly, I think I heard Dr. Kelly say if the Sparkle Parade and some things weren't artificially charged to the PAC, that, hold on a second, that maybe there might be some money freed up for things that are related to the PAC to be a better fund. I mean, we also have issues with the PAC. I heard power went out again. I don't know that we have a generator to deal with that issue, so got a lot of questions about that, but I mean, is that right, your question,
That's
Dr.
right,
Kelly,
yeah.
that, I mean, you could still make, it's just accounting tricks. If you were to charge things that are not directly PAC related to the general fund, then the PAC might actually have a surplus under that level of accounting, and you could have opportunities to do more. And also, by the way, get things in return as well. I mean, with these partnerships. So that's the question, right?
So the fundamental question though remains, Is there a desire to change and provide a subsidy out of the general fund to the Performing Arts Center?
Well, but is the department putting
wait.
Performing Arts Center?
Yes, all of the signature events are
Only 'cause
part
we-
of the Performing Arts
It's because
Center.
only because we say it is.
No, it's not, because operationally, they are produced by the Performing Arts Center. Anna and her entire team are in the PAC. They are in the Performing Arts Center department, as well as the production crew, who are the folks that are out setting up for each of our.
Yeah, so you want to call it
outdoor
Performing
concerts.
Arts Center and city programming. I mean, yeah, it's a
Ultimately,
little
it's-
semantical.
It's all city programming because it's under the auspices of the city. They are a department of the city, but they are an enterprise fund. So again, the fundamental question goes back to, is there a desire to start giving a transfer, and what amount would you like that to be? Because I need to know where to cut the general fund in order to take care of that transfer, if there's a desire to do that.
Can you give us an amount and talk, then be more specific about what you're talking about?
I don't think it should be based on an amount. I think we should
What's
have.
what's the plan here?
You should have a plan and have an idea, and then you get, if there is a cost, and then are we willing to go and do that? I don't espouse to saying, picking a number out of the air and saying, we're gonna do a transfer and then use the money. I'd rather have a need and know what it's for, and then have the discussion about, do we want to sign up for that?
That's actually how I would approach it as well. If you have things you want us to consider, bring us things that you want us to consider that would
Or if
enhance this.
We have things we want to
Or if we
consider.
have things we
What?
want considered.
I don't know. The only thing I know is we have one of our nonprofits who's come to us and has asked for additional consideration. Is this all because of that? Or is this because of an overarching view that we could do a lot more if we just had more money?
We were responding to the question that was submitted. That question came in before that additional ask came in.
Uh-huh.
And that's why it's the fundamental question for me. We can go back and calculate what would be needed, but I need to know that there is a willingness to provide that, because you all were very clear the last 3 fiscal years that you did not want to provide a transfer from the general fund to the Performing Arts Center to subsidize its operations.
And I still think that if that's possible, I'd like to see it behave that way. I'd like to see it still run that way, unless the community is not getting, satisfactory performances from our organization. So if there's something that is critically needed that we could do that we're not doing because we've hamstrung the budget, I want to know about it. I've not heard any of those. And if there's something like that, if we just did this, we could make cost more, but we would be better for the city. We haven't heard those plans. There's a plan like that out there. Bring it to us.
We haven't brought that plan forward because we believe that we do have it structured in such a way to meet the expectations and the desires of the community.
That's what I've always thought.
What about the second rectangle here? Is that a question?
It was a question.
So, I mean, I'd have an interest in that. If we have to attach a number to.
So currently, Ramin is he's the general manager. I've come in, I've worked with him for 2 years now. He's going to take on the more active role so I can go out and be the executive director and work on development and other relationships with the city. So could we use some support? Maybe, but right now the plan is that my role will go to the executive director position that it really should be.
Okay, so do we want to fund an employee position? That's not really a question.
It is a question. We're telling you what the plan was. If you want to fund a position, that would have to
An
come
extra
from
position,
an extra
as
position.
opposed to the shifting that you're just talking about.
Correct.
Oh, that's the option.
Let's start with the shifting, see how it goes.
That was our proposal.
That's fine with me.
Will you let us know more specifically about what, because I thought you were talking about the presenting partner that asked for additional concessions. So I would like to know more specifics before we say yes or no to, I think we're all open to listening to, what other demands or asks are.
Okay.
I think that we also need to know where that money for shifting, where are the opportunities to move it, and what would suffer or not, should we choose to do that.
Okay.
And let me make clear, I submitted some of this question. Separate from, I've been asking about this for quite a while, about evaluating our presenting our highest value part. I think what's happened every year is discussion gets had mid-budget year, right? About evolving needs, requests and interests. And I think a fair answer, whether we agree, I mean, a fair answer has, and the answer has been, let's take it up at budget time. So that is why I asked the question about evaluation of our presenting our, what we would call our highest profile value partners during the budget time, so that we can say that we've addressed that at this point. And then subsequent to that time, they have submitted, one of our presenting partners apparently has submitted something, a proposal also with that instruction, do it at budget time. And I think those are two separate questions. What do we want to get out of our presenting partners? What's the value to us? And what are we getting out of it? I think we should know what we're getting out of it. You know, because we've had questions through the years about, you know, are we prioritizing education enough? And it's not just City Springs Theater Company. It was that program that was during December where the schools came in. So I think this is just a good time to address what community needs could be better addressed and during the budget process. So I think that's what this is about.
Yeah, I mean, I'm open to listening, as Councilman Rochelle said, but also acknowledging that we have finite resources. So, you know, I'm saying, my mom used to say money doesn't grow on trees. So we have to either be able to figure out how to go get more money or how we're gonna switch things around and just make sure that we're all understand what that means.
Okay. Right.
Skating ring, does it compete with the, or harm businesses, the local business? So, you know, I met several times with the skating rink here. We have a totally different experience. It is really geared toward the holidays. We tried to support the local skating rink and we've done a little bit of marketing for them. Does it affect them? I don't really know how it affects them because I don't know their business model or their numbers. But I do want to say that I believe it's a totally different experience. It's a very short-term experience. And again, we're happy to work with them any way we can to support them. So that's the answer to that's my answer to that.
We make money on the skating rink this time, like,
We gave you that number in
Yeah.
workshop one.
and I thought you were gonna come back
I
with
thought we
some.
lost money, not as much
Yeah.
though.
No, it's in there. We went through it in workshop number one. Let me get to the page. Page 47 from workshop one. Last year, it was a loss of $11,477.
And is there any is all sort of general admin, is there a load that's charged to the rink for sort of overall?
The installation of it comes out of facilities as opposed to PAC, but.
Are there any general operations charged to that?
Sir, it's direct. One of the things that they'll be looking at this year is staffing, better hours. We weren't opened as much, and that's really how they drove down the cost last year compared to the year prior.
But is there cost for our sort of PAC team that's not directly attributed to this or any other event?
No, it's in there.
There's a load that's charged to the event?
Admin fee. You've got
No, the
direct
admin
staffing.
staffing.
It's
All the
direct
staffing
staffing
is-
that's working on, that's charged. So it's
Right.
like rink attendance. It's not an indirect cost.
Like your time bill, I mean,
No.
right, we don't know. Yeah, that's a harder number to come at, but.
Juneteenth, this kind of goes back to the same question. So we increased it by $10,000 this year. And again, additional funding would have to come out of the general fund. So if you guys wanted to add some dollars from the general fund, if we do the exercise of where would it come from and everything.
Actually, this one, if there's a desire to do the 10,000, because it's a relatively small number, it could come out of PAC's fund balance reserve. They do have a small fund balance reserve on their own.
All right, thank you.
So the 10,000 gets us to 25,000
That would take it to 35,000 for next year.
Oh, well, we'll take it to 25, right?
Well, the city of Sand Springs is 15.
No, you're right. It's
10.
15. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
You're right.
25.
Excuse
So
me.
we have the bump rates for the rest.
And what do you think? Is it still gonna be 40 grand this year?
I think that's.
So
gonna
the
be-
city's got a little more than half of the costs. They're funding half the costs, a little more than half.
Just, it's a good number. It sets us up to where if a year is not good for sponsorships, you can still have a quality event on par with the rest of our signature events. But, yeah. I think it's.
Thank you.
Okay, Dave is gonna come up and answer the facilities questions.
Afternoon, Mayor and Council.
Afternoon.
Question was, that you guys wanted an update of the cistern. So we, last, fall, we drained it, cleaned it. We hired Kimberly Horn to come in and inspect it. Good thing is that we didn't have any structural damage this time, but we do have some spalling in the concrete walls. We found a lot of silt in there, so we want to get to the bottom of that. And we have, the sump pumps, and we have some leaks on the floor of the cistern. Kimberly Horn identified about 700 linear feet of the caulk joint that has failed. We need to go in and replace that. They have designed and permitted concrete boxes on all the inlets to capture the silt right there at the inlet instead of letting it get into the cistern. And that'll protect our pumps. And both of our pumps are inoperable at the time, and we'll be replacing them too once we get in. We're working with procurement right now to release this out on the street to bid it out. We're estimating it somewhere around $500,000. We have right now $1.3 million in the fund for that project.
So quick question, Dave. So the inoperable pumps are dying on us because of the silt they're having in the pumps?
Yes, sir.
So there are trash pumps, what they call them.
They're sitting in the very bottom of the pit.
Oh, I know what they are.
And
There are pumps that are designed to pump silt. So maybe can we upgrade our pumps so that they're more robust?
we'll definitely look at that when we're replacing them. They're $25,000 a piece.
Oh, I know, they're big time. But I've been in situations where they use these, what they call trash pumps. They literally pick up and pump anything smaller than a quarter of an inch. Maybe that's a way of just put a better pump in there to begin with, so that you're not worried about it burning out.
So our plan is, so we installed the bypass system last fall.
Yep.
To be able to divert the stormwater around this cistern. Our plan is to go in every year, do a cleaning of it and inspecting it. That way we get more longevity of it.
Yeah, maybe the pumps will last longer.
We've been in this building now, what, 7 years?
2018, yes, sir.
And it seems like we've had the problem with the cistern since the very day we moved into this place here.
The cistern was one of the known faults during construction.
And I assume that 1.3 million is part of what we got out of that lawsuit when we sued them.
We haven't said, we haven't,
We haven't.
that's still, this is all still in litigation.
It's still in litigation, 7 years, okay.
Settle ones.
It seems like the cistern's a problem that's never gonna end.
Has it been working at all?
It worked for the first year, then the pump started to fail.
Like,
And
what's like, okay, I'm not a cistern.
I'm going to go into that in a little, and on the next slide, we're going to talk about the, one of the other questions was fountain water. And that's, so the purpose of the cistern is 300,000 gallons. 1/3 of it is just for the roof runoff and it goes for our fountain. The other 2/3 goes and runs all of our irrigation system. But we haven't been able to use either one of those for the last 3 years.
300,000 gallon, oh, more than that.
It's 300,000 gallons, yes.
Oh, so the irrigation number is not in this number too.
No, it is not in that number.
It's in the one on the next slide, where you see watershed.
Oh, okay.
So do we need to have a working cistern if we haven't been using?
We're gonna have when we do these repairs, we're hoping that this will get us to where we need to go with
Well, the
systems.
system wasn't just for on-site recycling of water. And we're seeing the cost of this, it's pretty substantial. And this actually could be a very good a decent return on investment. But it is also to manage water flow into Marsh Creek, right? And I think, and that's part of, that's what the system was.
It does slow it down for this whole site. We
It
thought,
hasn't been working for 3 years.
I know, and Marsh Creek's taking the brunt of the water.
Well, it's collecting water, we're just not reusing it.
Yeah, it collects, fills up and then goes into Marsh Creek.
So we're able to slow the,
Mhm.
so we are able to slow the flow into Marsh.
That function is working.
Okay, good. That's good to know because that was the primary function.
Why is there such a big difference in the price of the water?
Okay, I'm gonna go to the next slide. Another question was, so I'm gonna explain this. So the fountains were not designed to run off strictly tap water. They were designed to run off the cistern. So when we installed the meters back in 2018, they were tap water meters because the splash pad has to have fresh water into it. That is a pool quality requirement. So when you have the domestic water, you have to pay the sewage too. So if we have a bill that's $20,000 a month, we're paying also $20,000 a month for sewage. So we did in late
I would pay for
23.
sewage too.
It was the way
We
it was
didn't have a
metered at
separate
that time.
tab, a separate-
The way to get around that is you put an
Separate
irrigation meter
meter.
on.
And
Yeah,
that's what we
So
did.
in late 23, we put an irrigation meter in to mitigate this. Okay, now you see the numbers dropping. In 2024, our fountain usage was only 24,000, 26,000. So that did give us a savings, but that number could come down more if we're able to use the
Well,
cistern.
the fountain was 26 and now it continued to go up because we had the fountain and then the splash pad that we've seen the big savings.
Yeah. And plus we had some heavy maintenance on the pack fountain this year too. We had some tile that failed, so we had a pool to drain the basin a couple of times.
How much do we spend on that?
For the fountain work, it's about 20 grand.
It's gonna take a lot of time to make up for the 1.3 million. I mean, is it worth fixing the cistern? I guess that's where I'm trying to get at, like, do we need to have the cistern fixed at 1 point something million?
I mean, it will give us a savings on irrigation and on the fountains. It won't give us, savings on the splash pad.
How much is
Splash pad
irrigation?
That's a
That's-
cost.
What's our savings?
If you base it strictly on 24, well, actually, you probably should use 25 numbers.
no, that's the, what's in
Really
the
count.
So how much is it gonna cost to fix the cistern?
We're estimating somewhere around between $300,000 and $500,000.
Oh, it's really gonna help us if we put the water on.
So,
That's 20%
Yeah.
off the top.
Right there.
what do you say?
I said if if the ruling would be in Sandy Springs' favor on the water and we get reduction in rates, that would help.
So the watershed management number, does that include the numbers above?
Okay, so the next slide. You guys asked about your utility bills. This is
I mean,
city water.
Jody's question, trying to decide, is there an adequate return on investment?
This is water to every city facility here. This is not just.
So to Jody's question, is there an adequate return on investment? If the cistern is functioning for environmental purposes right now with slowing the flow to Marsh Creek and dealing with water quality, for purposes of saving money on, and also it's good environmentally for just that in itself is a good thing. Is there, how much water are we talking about recycling?
So
a year?
the cistern is designed to give us 2.5 weeks of makeup water for irrigation. That's a substantial amount of water if we're able to use that water for our irrigation.
And how many hundreds of thousands of gallons? You said 300,000 or
300,000.
at any given, that's the capacity?
That's when it's full. That's when it starts to go into Marsh Creek.
Okay. So you hold that and then you're able to use that for the property. I guess the question, and that's great, recycling water, how much money are we saving? That's your question, right? How
Yeah,
much money are we saving a year by recycling? When it's working. When we spent this $300,000 to $500,000 to repair the cistern, how much are we saving?
We have some calculations when they designed it. I can reach back.
I mean, if we're saving 100,000, that's a 20% return on a $500,000 bill. It's a pretty good deal. You're saying $10,000, it's not a good deal.
right. And if it's gonna be fixed, and what other problems are we
I
having?
would imagine our irrigation, we don't have it up here, but I imagine our irrigation costs are pretty high.
But we don't have now we have a little bit less with
We do have a little bit less, and that reflects on that number here on 24.
Can you guys just do that analysis?
Sure.
I mean, I do like the idea of a city setting an example in recycling, so there's some value with that, and obviously with water quality function.
That was one of our
street.
sustainability initiatives, was the cistern.
Absolutely, and also by using the water here, it will then not go to Marsh Creek. I mean, that if you don't use the water here, then over time, the more water goes into Marsh Creek, which is something we're trying to avoid, right? I mean,
Well, you want it, whatever you release into Marsh Creek, you want it to be
filtered
clean water.
Yeah.
Clean water. And that's the purpose here. It's also a reason for the Marsh Creek
That's right.
as well.
But all of this was done I remember.
And the ability to use it was when we had grass as opposed to turf. That would save a lot too, but there's multiple benefits by having this thing working. And we don't have to use potable water for the fountains.
I agree.
And right now, we're having to do that, and those would be huge savings. We finally get, unfortunately, the system we got was not the one we paid. So.
I would like to draw your attention down to the gasoline down here. It's about a $300,000 savings that we have for the installing the fuel farm up there.
I asked that question it was a softball for.
We're paying wholesale prices, so we're seeing really good savings.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like $400,000. Huh? No, not quite.
And our folks love having that facility available for them to use.
It's also a productivity improvement.
Absolutely.
About 20,000, 10,000.
Just can't get a big Slurpee or something there.
But we do have water for them.
Our natural gas costs, we have an agreement with the GMA. They get us the best rate. That's why we have the flex of the three different companies up there. Where right now we're using the NextEra. We get the best rate.
That's good saving too, isn't it?
We still have our gas out program.
We do.
I think I use gas out. That's a good program. People still know about it. We haven't discussed it for years.
We still promote it on the city website, but there's not a lot of enrollments. And I know that Gas South does periodically send out letters to people that live in the
But we
city.
definitely have a savings if you use it.
Any questions on this slide?
Okay, thank you, Dave. Next up is traffic calming, and I'm going to go through these. We will be bringing you a broader conversation if there's still a desire to look at changes to the policy. What we're focused on answering today are the questions about the usage of the program. As I mentioned to you during workshop 1, we currently have in our capital budget $229,990. And in 26, we were proposing to add another $50,000 to that. From January 1st, 2020 through May 12th, 2025, so almost 5 years, 4.5 years, we received 85 eligible requests for traffic calming. Eligible meaning that there was speeding issues that were identified. It was a neighborhood street, not an arterial or a collector. It roughly was 10% of all transportation requests that were received during that time period. Most of those, however, were signal and sign requests, which was 75% of the requests. As a result of the 85 that came in, staff did complete 22 traffic calming studies, and that's where they looked at traffic speeds, traffic volumes, travel patterns, crashes, infrastructure, and the roadway geometry. 5 neighborhoods have had traffic calming treatments installed, and that includes Allen Road, Jet Road, Londonderry, River Shore Estates, and Spalding Woods. 8 neighborhoods were eligible and staff developed the treatment plans, but the neighborhoods have not proceeded with the program to date. Either they didn't have sufficient numbers of neighbors who wanted to participate in it, or the contribution, they were not able to collect those. 9 neighborhoods did not qualify for traffic calming treatments because the traffic study indicated there was no excessive speeding. And so far this year, we have had 1 neighborhood meet with staff to discuss the traffic calming program. Any questions about traffic calming?
So why are we adding more money to the budget then? If the 5 that were done, I'm sure couldn't add up to $275,000.
We have a breakdown on that, and you'll hear more about that in the next council meeting. We'll do a council workshop on June 3rd
On traffic.
on traffic calming.
Good.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And you'll see most of that because remember, right now, we're only paying a portion of it. And the reason we were adding the 50,000 in the budget this year is that's been our usual amount that we have allocated each year. And in case any of these other 8 neighborhoods that came forward and wanted to do it, but haven't so far did it, we wanted to have funding available for that plus the new additional one.
And if we decide that the city's gonna take on a larger share of the cost,
And you'll
you'd have the
probably,
resources.
you'll probably want more money to be put
Right,
into
but
it.
maybe not, they can't everybody do it every year, but they have either first come, first served, or some sort of scoring system or whatever, but all the ways we always do things, how we prioritize.
Correct.
Doesn't mean you get everything in the first year.
Eden, can you go back to the 8 neighborhoods and find out what their progress is? Is it a money issue?
Sure.
Or is it the inability to get the right number of people the minimum number of people to sign on?
So
Let's find out if it
the
is a money issue.
well, and the 8 I can tell you, Glen Arrow, Hunt Cliff, Osner, Spurl Springs, Grogan's Bluff, Old Powers Ferry, Hope Road, and Dupree. Hope and Dupree are undergoing their petitioning process, trying to get support for the neighbors. The most common reason that's been cited by all of them is a lack of support from the neighbors.
Lack of monetary support.
Just lack of support.
Well, no, but it can be a function of the cost too. And also it's the impacted area. I hear this all the time, that the impacted area sometimes, here for Public Works, can include people that aren't in that right area, but they travel past that from side streets. I mean, there's a lot of nuance. You may have neighborhoods that, having heard how hard it is, just don't even bother.
Councilwoman Rochelle, did you have a question?
That was my question.
Okay. There's also another consideration, just to mention it. I know we've talked a lot about the Chain v. Milton lawsuit that is pending, which, as you all recall, says that cities can't put things in the right of way, cities and counties. That is still being adjudicated. And I didn't know if our city attorney wanted to speak to that.
I would mention to you that in general, to enact an ordinance, you have one big standard, and that is it cannot be arbitrary and capricious. The spending of money cannot be arbitrary and capricious. And I've opined on this before, right after I began representing the city, and learned that a vote of the community is a consideration in deciding what you do about traffic calming is arbitrary and capricious. And I would submit to you, you won't find it hardly anywhere. So when you do something about traffic, it has to have a scientific, administrative review that controls whether it occurs or not, whether it's a stop sign, whether it's a speed bump or anything done under the control and auspices of the city's police power can't be a popular vote. And that's
because that's a really, keep going.
Hang on, that's a separate subject. The first is the staff decides whether a project is eligible.
That's right.
Isn't that the technical criteria by which the staff decides whether the thing can even go forward?
It is.
Yeah, then at that point.
But you don't do it unless, excuse me, interrupting, but then you don't do it unless a majority of the interested group decide they want it.
But arguably, we're spreading, like under our zero fatality policy, we're neglecting things that our staff has said to do. We're waiting for the local people to vote on it. I've always had a problem with this, and I've always asked, where's Marty here?
He's behind you.
The question every year has been, are there objective standards that would say, screw the process, we're just gonna do it? I can think of one, Timmy's district, Telfair, right? What was the Bend on Peachtree, Dunwoody, like,
Right.
we did work there, and we've done some other places where, look, we need to do it. And I think John's point, Councilman Paulson's point is excellent. I think your point is excellent. I think actually, do I hear you saying we really should examine this policy because we're identifying things that should be done, and then we're leaving it to the citizens to decide whether we should do it.
Well, I go further to say that the times I know about this issue, it's initiated by the public. And you take the same process in look at what GDOT does. They don't go ask the interested parties in the neighborhood what they think ought to go and be done to control the traffic. It's guided by traffic science, if there is such a thing, Marty, or traffic engineering, to determine it. And granted, this is a political body that you gotta look at that. I would submit to you, that's been my opinion for the last 8 years. Since the Milton case, we have a new standard. I think correctly said, even what has happened right now without the Supreme Court intervening is that the city is responsible or liable for things that are in the right of way. And, you know, I'll just use a speed bump since Marty knows it's my favorite. If it causes an accident, there may be some reliability there. And I don't know that, like everything we do in the right of way, like the traffic control arms, like plantings. Before this Milton case, we never really looked at, oh goodness, we may have some liability. Somebody may hit that tree. Somebody may run over that fire hydrant. It is changing the whole look of how we make should change the whole look of how we make a decision about what we do in the right of way. It could have
So
a
are you
legal effect.
Could you also make the case that if traffic science indicates that a program is eligible to speeding, blah, 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 and then, let's say we eliminated citizen initiated traffic calming. And then there's all of a sudden, by having eliminated that, there is excessive speeding, the city's done nothing, and there's an accident, do we not have liability in that case too?
For not doing anything?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Okay, so is there a potential recommendation here to eliminate traffic calming, this whole policy?
The part of it that allows for a determination by public vote, yes.
That's the part you want to eliminate.
It has no place in deciding how traffic is managed.
But we
I don't
also
know
have
the
to
history of
consider
that.
Milton as well.
Oh, yeah, Milton's that's actually another complication of the whole thing. What you're saying is if staff says, we really need traffic calming in this area, accepting the Milton case, we should just go do it.
I
Put it
talked
on the
to,
project list and do it. That's regardless of whether the neighbor thinks it's a good idea or not.
I talked to
Yeah, interesting.
the city attorney emeritus and asked him about it, who wrote.
How is he?
He's doing well.
Good, good.
It's another one of those instances where the community, prior to the city being formed, in its contact with Fulton County and not getting anything back, never getting anything back. And then finally they come back and say, listen, if you get enough people for something and you can raise enough money, okay, we'll help.
Well, I'm glad we're having this conversation. It sounds timely.
And I would also add to that, I think we're more than 20 years removed in the advancement of traffic in Sandy Springs to where a speed bump may not necessarily be the modern way of managing traffic. And this comes not from the lawyer, but from the traffic engineers. You know, things have changed to where the lighting, traffic lights, the kinds of stop signs, they've been breakaway forever. There are lots of advancements in that. Having people vote to decide what it looks like is not a good policy.
Well, I mean, and it's been, somebody's done tons of these in the neighborhoods. It creates months, if not years of angst and time. And, you know, if there's a better way to do it, by all means, let's.
But some of it is driven by, in my opinion, in Wendell's opinion, that there were so many years of neglect of customer service. This was a way for Fulton County to throw something at the problem.
Yeah, well, and a lot of it, these initiated requests are from accidents that are occurring, people walking their dogs and speeding and perceptions of the public. Great, I'm glad we're having the conversation.
Well, we can't, if we take away, I think, the semi-control from the residents, I don't think we should be charging them.
Of course not.
So I have a suggestion here. First off, I'm not too sure why we should throw 50 more G's into this when we really got to evaluate this policy, number one.
Okay.
And number two, the Milton case may throw a monkey wrench in how we look at all this stuff going forward. So at this point.
But as long as we're committed to a really good staff-led, legal-led staff community conversation on traffic calming. Because clearly, I mean, we don't have a lot of things, there's a lot of neighborhoods that are interested in this across, this is an across the city question.
Well, it divides neighborhoods from this perspective. The people who live on the street where it's occurring want the. speed.
Except for the person in whose house it's right in front.
That's right.
And then, but everybody else who has to migrate
Around
out
the
of that
corner.
subdivision or that community who has to go over them, they don't like it.
That's right.
So that's the dilemma and dichotomy that we
So if
face.
we
Well, I think
take
we
this
have
over
to-
without that community input, then the neighbors just be mad at us for doing it.
Yeah,
What, Jody?
Well, I mean, there's the difference between putting one speed bump and putting 10, like on Glen Ridge.
Well, it's
or-
usually done in I mean, it's always done
No,
consulting with the staff.
it's engineered properly. I mean, it's based on the
And,
engineering
and
of the
with the
situation.
neighborhood.
And with the 75% approval, I mean, it's a very high, I mean, it's hard to argue that a majority of people don't approve it under our standards. People in that neighborhood, it's the outside drivers that make it frustrated, but under our current system, it's a lot of people who live in that area. If you see a speed hump gone in, a lot of people have approved it in that area. It's not.
Mr. Lee, let me pose this question. I understand where you're coming from. But let's just say that the council had a policy of taking a advisory recommendation by the neighborhoods, but the council made the ultimate decision, yea or nay. Is there anything that would prohibit us from at least soliciting the opinion?
No, you do the same thing with public hearings on zoning.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's no reason we couldn't still solicit the opinion of the residents, but it's still ultimately up to the body to make the decision about whether to spend the money and what projects they would approve.
Well, and further, Sandy Springs does it on every issue because of the public comment, public hearing process that you have.
And that's generally the case, is that the council has to approve the expenditure of the money for those projects when we do them.
And Russ, you could set up, like we have scoring priorities. I mean, you could have these projects scored and prioritized. It's not gonna all get done in here.
Works probably already has.
They do that.
They're gonna evaluate them anyway.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, but scored relative to the other ones, meaning right now we have a situation, the only limiting factor is get your petitions in, staff approve it and money being available. Under this circumstance, we would have projects that would be sort of on the books, and then you'd work through them based on a scoring issue.
Well,
And this was commonly because of our recent discussions about the zero fatality by,
2040 is coming.
right, 2040. Thank you, John, instead of 2050.
That's correct. Okay.
Good.
Just one more question on that. Are there any safety concerns from police or fire? We start having more of these. I know, and Councilmember Michelle, and you're talking about Glen Ridge. That is, I mean, that's probably the longest stretch of speed humps around, and then they're on either side of the roundabout.
They do slow response time. That's simple fact.
That was one of the reasons we opposed them initially, was because of the decrease in response time of emergency vehicles.
Yeah.
well, it's something we have to take into consideration when we place them, and where we place them.
And those,
What is the impact on response?
and those are public safety warranted
But
considerations,
didn't they come out with
not a public.
speed mats that were narrower or smaller so that emergency vehicles wouldn't be affected by them?
Truck, the tires still hit one of them.
The truck tires still hit them.
And there are other ways to calm traffic. Besides speed bumps.
I don't want to hear the story, but it'll slow you down, but, there was an intersection where a new school was built out in the country, Highway 41. Everybody was raising Cain about wanting something done. There's nothing, the intersection. Called GDOT, GDOT comes out and they painted lines that said school ahead. People kept complaining. And I said, what are you gonna do? And I learned it the hard way. What the GDOT does is they have a series of things and they start at the beginning and they start doing them until they get an effect. And then they stop. Because the theory is we want to do as little as we can to protect what we're trying to protect without interfering with as much traffic as we can.
Makes sense.
And it's not a vote.
Well, good. We'll have this conversation. Interesting. And it should be, I think, Melissa, it should be staff led. They should bring us the data and their.
Okay, we will hear more about that in an upcoming work session. So the last two slides are not, you've seen these, they were in budget workshop 1. This is just a recap of our FY 2026 capital budget assumptions that are planning to go into the proposed budget. I will not read through all of these to you. I know we have some follow-up on potential Fire Station 4 and where that would be incorporated in, and we'll talk more about that soon.
We, at least in our fiscal year 25 budget, we had a line item called sidewalk program. It had 750,000 budgeted last year. Is that here? It could be here and I'm just not seeing it. Are we
It
not-
is. And they're also included in T-Splost as well.
Right, yeah, I know we have the T-Splost. I was just wondering about this, separate item. It was a capital project last year.
Okay.
Project P6000, we had funded it for a while because of T-Splost. And then we put $750,000 in it for fiscal 2025.
Right, last year, Mike, we didn't ask for any additional funds this year. We had some project, it was largely due to Brandonville sidewalks this past year that we had to fund sidewalk program to cover that expense. So it was a single one-off where we asked for an augmentation of sidewalk program outside of T-Splost this past year. We did not ask for it this year.
Okay, so we're sticking to T-Splost.
It's under construction.
It's coming
Still
along.
under construction.
It's coming along.
How close is it?
About, oh, half.
Yeah,
Yes, not to bring this, we're talking about facilities, but the new designs outside that talk about the parking.
Mhm.
And I think it's very confusing for people, that they have to put their license plate in the QR code, no matter if they're gonna be there under 2 hours. I looked at the signs yesterday.
Okay.
And it doesn't say, it just says 0 to 2 hours free. And it's not clear, and I know a lot of people have been getting warning tickets. And I feel like we need to put something out there that says, no matter what, you have to put your.
That's a good point. Yeah,
I park it someplace and you still have to register and then take the 2 free hours.
yeah, but I had someone ask me that question today and had to explain, you still have to put it in.
Yeah.
That way you
We should
start
have
your,
signage out
yeah.
there.
Okay,
Well, some people saw that they were being charged and it had been there less than 2 hours. And so we had to explain to them that, if you stay less than 2 hours, that charge goes away. So there's some explaining we have to do
Yeah.
to make sure that everybody understands how the system works.
all right. If there's nothing else, we will see y'all 1 week from today. Well,
Or a couple hours.
in a couple hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mayor.